call you and I'll put you on the screen for that. Okay, but now back to Josephine. So Josephine Hubert is the Academic Alliance Manager at Celonis. She is responsible for the Global Education and Research Cooperation Program at Celonis. She graduated from Maastricht University with a Master in Psychology, as well as from Technical University of Munich with a Master in Education. And you might have seen it already. If not, now you have the chance. As with all speakers, I recorded a trailer. And yeah, let's have a look at that one together. And then I hand over to Josephine.
I will first of all introduce the process mining technology, where we take data from underlying IT systems or customer relations management systems, so any system where we collect data, and we will connect them with the Celonis software, where we can first of all reconstruct how processes are run in the real world, in the businesses. Then we can analyze and find bottlenecks in the process. And finally, we want to find improvement potentials in order to make the process more efficient and smarter, more effective, more sustainable.
The good thing is that Josefina also will let us some access to the tools that you will use later, and that means also for the challenges you can make access to the tooling of Celonis, and therefore it's very cool. The same will be also the case with AWS and also with Siemens maybe, and therefore it's even more interesting to listen to it. And yeah, so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invite, and I'm super excited to be here because, as Mark Oliver said, I came from Germany, from Munich, where the Celonis headquarters are, and this is my first presentation after COVID in live. So I had all of the presentations usually online via Zoom, MS Teams, so I'm super excited to be here in person today. And in this keynote, I want to talk about how we are transforming data into value for businesses, for Celonis customers, partners, for you as academics as well. And I would like to show you the execution management system. So as you just heard, you will get an academic access for this. And I will invite you in a second so you can already get ready, take out your laptops. So you have that all for the challenge part later on. And for myself, I'm Josephine. So as I said, I'm Academic Alliance Manager based out of the Munich office, and I take care of partnerships on a global level. So we are making collaborations with professors, with students all over the world. And I'm also responsible for France, the Benelux. I just talked to the 2 PhD students also from Ghent and Leuven. So I'm also happy to have you here. And basically, we bring Celonis into the academic world. So what you are doing here during this week, connecting academia and industry, is what we are exactly doing as well with our Academic Alliance team. All right, so first of all, I already got a question from DJ Herkin here, like how did Celonis grow so much? And how it started was in 2011. So actually, the 3 founders, you can see them here on the picture as well. They were students at the Technical University of Munich, and at the side they were also doing a project for a student consultancy called Academy Consult, and they wanted to help the client, the Bavarian Broadcasting Company that you can see here. It's not pointing on the very left. So also based in Munich, this company actually wanted to have an improvement of their IT help desk processes. And what the 3 founders did was basically finding the technology from research, the process mining technology, and they implemented this technology in the very first software for enterprises. So the first enterprise software for process mining. This is what they built back then in 2011 for this very first project. And then they implemented it with this customer of the Bavarian Broadcasting Company in Munich. And then also later on landed more and more customers. And like this, they actually created a company while still being at university. So they founded out of the Technical University of Munich and grew rapidly since then. If I introduce to you to Celonis nowadays, in this year, you can see that there have been a lot of different investment rounds. So from 2016 up until Series D during this year, the market value increased a lot. So Celonis got several investment rounds. With the last one in June, the market value grew at $11 billion. So this is what we do not call a unicorn, what you have for startups, but actually a decacorn. So the market value is higher than $10 billion. And Celonis reached the status in this year. So actually from the 3 students back then in 2011, 10 years later, they grew the company with a year-over-year growth over 100% every year. They had more than 2,000 enterprise deployments, so meaning that the technology is used with customers. And also very interesting, what I got asked before is how many employees do we have nowadays? It's more than 2,000 across different offices. So not only in Munich and the other headquarters in New York, but also a lot of different offices around Europe. And what we do at Celonis is really looking into processes. So you can more think of the way of we are looking at processes with the lens of a data scientist. So we're taking data and we want to see how the processes are run in businesses and how can we improve them. So the whole technology is based on digital process analysis, improvement and execution. And what Celonis is creating is a whole new software category, the execution management. So how do you actually make processes run better in businesses? And this is what we do in the execution management system, where you will all get access for the academic edition in a second. I mentioned the global expansion already a little bit. So I'm based in Munich. This is where all started, but you also see the other headquarters in New York, some other offices around in the US. There's another hub, for example, in Raleigh in the US, where some of my colleagues are also based. Then in Europe are quite some offices, like the closest to here would be Paris in France. Then we also have an Amsterdam office, London. For the Nordics, there's an office in Stockholm. And a lot of developers are based in Pristina in Kosovo. And as you see, at this moment, we only have one office, which is in Tokyo in Japan. But actually, today, they launched the announcement of the newest office, which is going to be in India as well. So you see, Celonis is really branching out to all different parts of the world with this hub in Europe and the US, but also increasingly going on to other continents like Asia. What I do personally every day, so I'm Academic Alliance manager, and what we do in the Academic Alliance is what you can see here, actually creating this whole community, academic community, around the execution management system and around the Salonist technology. So we have different pillars, and the very first one is what we're actually doing today, so empower the next generation, talking to you as PhD students and telling you what process mining is about, how you can also use it in your research. So actually also driving innovation through research, what you can see at the very bottom. And then we really want to create this vivid ecosystem. So we already have customers, partners on the industry side, but also on the academic side. This is where our team comes in. We are creating out these partnerships with student organizations, with courses. So if some of you are also teaching, I talked to some PhD students also over lunch. So if you also want to use Celonis in your own courses, you can definitely reach out to me and also use our teaching materials. And really want to create this whole academic community, as you can see in the center of our mission. So as said, if you like what you're seeing today with the demo and also with the practical part later on, I'm happy to also support those of you who are teaching, so the professors, of course, as well as PhD students who are also giving some courses to bachelor or master students. And the Academic Alliance is really crucial to Celonis because what we think is that when you already learn about process mining at the university level, then of course you're better equipped for later on once you enter the job markets or you are working in industry. So what I mentioned before, and you will all get the academic edition, and I see most of you already have the laptops out, that's perfect. So if you enter this link, signup.celonis.com, you will actually get to a sign-up page where you first of all just enter your university email address or the one from your research institute, from your university, so the academic email address. This is the very first step that you do after opening this link. And then you will receive an email to your inbox. If you don't find it right away, you can check your spam folders. This sometimes lands there because it's a system-generated email. And then later on, once you are asked to complete a registration, you can put what applies to you. So student, professor, or researcher. So for all of you, I think could be researcher, or if you're also teaching, professor. And then from there, you will get your access to Celonis Academic Edition. So I'll just give you a moment to enter your registrations. And if there are any hiccups, any questions, let me know if it's not working properly for you. And then you will all get access in a minute. So you have your academic edition for the practical parts later on in this keynote, and then also in the case later. Do we have any people online as well?
Online?
Yeah.
Yeah. On YouTube?
You could post this link maybe?
No, they are seeing.
Okay.
Let me see.
That's fine.
And would you like to?
Yeah.
Try to read?
Thanks. Okay, so I hope it's working for everyone. If not, please let me know if you're having any problems there. I'll just walk around a bit to see where you are at. Okay, I think all good. Do you want to have the link as well? Okay, thanks. Is it working for you? Perfect. All right. Yeah, you can also do it on the phone, on your phone, of course. But then, if you want to also if you want to participate in the challenge, I would prefer, or like I would recommend the laptop because it's actually better on your laptop or an iPad than on the phone. But you can do the registration definitely as well. Okay. So in case you do not receive the email or anything is unclear, please let me know. I'm here to help in person, so this is really nice. All good? Okay. So I'll just leave you a little bit of more time. The good thing about this academic edition is that you can use it as long as you are enrolled in a university, so as long as you have access to your university email address. So you can use it, of course, for today, for the challenge, also later on if you want to use it for your own PhD or for your teaching. So you won't lose the access at any point in time, as long as you are having access to your academic emails. All right, do you want me to go on, or do some people still need time to register? Yes? No? Okay, if it's still loading, then it's fine. So you can complete the registration then in a little bit, so you're on the good way. Are the others ready? Okay. All right. Then let me show you what I was planning to do today in this keynote. So first of all, we'll have a deep dive into what is actually process mining. And are there some people who have already heard about it in this room? Can you show hands? One person? Because we talked earlier? Yeah? Okay, great. Then I will just explain it to everyone from scratch so you understand what the technology is about. I will show you the theoretical foundations because, as said, this technology comes from academia, so it's very interesting for you to see how it actually comes from research and is nowadays applied in the business world. Then in the live demo, I will show you a process in the execution management system. So this will be an ordering process because I think all of you are ordering some stuff online, some articles, products that you need for your own lives or for your research lives. So I will give you the demo about a delivery process. And then in the next part, we will actually apply this. And you will get the chance to also solve a little challenge question just to warm you up for the challenge later on. So this will also be about the order to cash process. And then in the end, I would like to show you where you can certify yourself. So we are having quite some online courses for academics, entirely for free. You get a certificate at the end, and these are really well done from our team, from the Salonist teams. And just recently a new course came out with the so-called godfather of process mining, who is Professor van der Aalst from the University of Aachen in Germany. He started off in the University of Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and we created a course with him together. So I will invite all of you to also take that course and share with you the details at the end. If you have questions, you can use the tool that we learned, or you can always just show hands, so you don't have to wait until the very end. All good? Then let's kick it off. So first of all, speaking of process mining, I want to start with the definition of what is actually a process. And I think it's maybe intuitive for some of you, but still I have this very straightforward definition for you. So we're talking about a process in the sense of having a lot of different activities or process steps that are linked to each other. They appear in a certain order, have a specific sequence that they're following through. And at the end, we have a particular business goal or like an objective we want to reach with our process. And in the visualization, you nicely see that we are following the different activities. For each and every activity, we actually have a timestamp. So that's why we have the little clock here on the right, because we want to see what time does this activity actually happen. So we can also see how long does our process take in total, and how can we also optimize this process based on the times, the throughput times, for example. So asking you now with this definition, what processes do you encounter every day? What processes do you have in mind? Anyone from the room? Can be a morning routine, so a different process for different activities that you need to take in the morning to come to university, or if you think about your own publications, there's also quite some steps that you need to take in order to publish in the end. So these are different ideas. And what other processes can you think of? Yeah? Yes, very good. So this is your goal would be actually to have your computer turned on, but there's different steps that you need to take. And maybe you are having some difficulties now, so you have some loops that you need to take, like restart again, try to plug in again. So this is a process in itself. Very good. Any other ideas? Yeah?
The pound cake recipe.
A recipe of?
Pancake.
pancake, yeah, very good. So here again, we have the goal of having the pancake at the end, and then you would need to follow different steps in your recipe, so different activities, yeah, very good. Any other idea from your research, maybe? Different processes that come to mind? Yeah?
Yeah, writing a research paper.
Very good. What different steps would you say would take most of the time in this process?
Yeah, good question. Sometimes a literature survey, writing the related work, sometimes doing the experiment, sometimes presenting the experiment results.
Yeah.
Depends on the research, it takes different phases, it takes different times.
Very good. Thank you. So yeah, we see definitely a lot of different activities. Some take longer than others. And in the end, you want to have the publication. So this is your final goal here. Very good. So this is like some examples of processes, and we want to focus a bit more on processes that we have in businesses. So for example, in the automotive value chain, you can see quite some different processes. For the customer side, we have this order to cash process, customer service management. Then in finance and administration, there would be processes like accounting. And on the product and services side, we also have a product development. So maybe some of you are also really familiar with that. So you have different steps of actually developing your product, and then also having this life cycle management of your product. And then on the top left, supply and distribution would also have some different processes. Like here highlighted, we have the warehouse operations or a purchasing process. So whenever your product is actually out for sale, then of course you would also have this purchasing process. Some others are buying your product. So this is only like this wheel of the automotive value chain, but you can also think of other industries. So for example, the software value chain. Again, you have a lot of different processes that are coming with it. On the right and left side, you would see the key performance indicators, so actually the numerical values that we are collecting for these processes. So it can be, for example, the app velocity or engagement, satisfaction of the customers or of the partners. So really, only in the software value chain, you already have a lot of different processes and different ways to measure them. Same for banking. So a lot of different processes involved in financial services and insurance, for example. And another example I also brought from telecommunications value chain. Again, you see how diverse this universe of processes can actually be. Speaking now a bit more in depth about what is process mining. So if we have a look at this visualization, you can see, first of all, the source of Professor van der Aalst here on the side. So Wil van der Aalst is his name, and as I said, he started off at the Eindhoven University of Technology in the late 90s, so this discipline is still rather new, and it's in an interdisciplinary approach. So we are looking at processes and the management of processes in businesses through the lens of data scientists. So we'd have data mining, statistics, machine learning, that you are also, most of you familiar with, as I learned from the group, databases, how can we do predictions. So here again, we would also need the machine learning part within. And all of this knowledge from the data science side is then actually applied to processes. So how do we manage the processes? How can we automate some activities in our process? How can we control for the improvements? How do operations actually change? So you can really see that process mining as a technology sits at this intersection of these both disciplines. So data combined with processes. Now, in a nutshell, if you want to see how the technology works at one glance, we start off always with the real-world activities. So here's an example of a production process. Something is produced, this is from the manufacturing industry, and all of these activities in the production process, they are stored somewhere. Where are these stored? In these underlying systems of record. So every activity that is being performed in the process is actually captured in these underlying systems. And in the systems, we can then, from them, we can then extract data. So we're speaking here of big data, to throw one of the buzzwords. Here you only see a snippet of an event log. So these are the data we extract from the systems. And these data show us information about the activities within our process. And then based on these log data, we would then be able to create this digital twin. So that actually, let me see if I can, no, you won't see it. So the digital twin is here, a screenshot of the Salonist software. There we can reconstruct how the process is actually run based on the data. So connecting the data with Celonis, or also uploading the data, as we will do later on in the challenge. You can then really reconstruct the process flow from start till end, and all of the deviations that come within the process flow. And from this digital twin, we can then actually draw back conclusions to the real world, and then see what is not going well in the process, what can we improve, how can we predict specific parts of the process to occur. And so we have this interaction between the digital twin and the real world activities. So this is it in a nutshell. If we want to dig a bit deeper into the kind of data we are looking at, you are able to see the process data here. So actually an event log captures at the minimum 3 points or 3 parts, let's say 3 pieces of information, so 3 data points. And the first one would be the case ID. So you can think of a unique identifier, unique identification number that you follow throughout the process. And for each and every case ID, we have several activities. So the second column shows the activity names. For example, creating an order, approving the credit check, preparing the shipping. So these are all the activities that are all connected to one specific case ID. And then, as I mentioned beforehand, we also want to know the time. So the date and the timestamp is important here to see when the activity was actually performed. And this is only like a small snapshot. If you ask my colleagues within Celonis who are working with the customer data directly and are helping them in the implementation, they would say that usually you have millions of rows of columns, so different data that are also included here. And speaking of big data, as I said earlier today. As an overview, we can see that everything starts with this event log, but you can enrich the data with master data. So there's another table here at the bottom where you can actually get even more information about your customer, for example, include the price of the different products that are purchased or ordered here. And we have this end-to-one relationship between the event log table and the master data. And both tables together, or several tables, as we can also see, as we will see later in the case challenge, these make our data model. So this is where everything is based upon. The data model, this is where it starts. And then based on this, we actually can create this process model. So in the middle, you can see that we can reconstruct the process, as I said, on the data that we get from our data model. And we can see the different activities, also deviations in our process, and really from end to end, so from start till end of the process. And what we eventually want to do with process mining, and you will also be asked today in the challenge, is how can we actually improve the process? So we first start with the process performance, how is the process run in reality? Are there specific bottlenecks? So these are some parts of the process that are not working well. I will also show you the conformance, where we compare the real data with the model. So we are actually seeing if the cases are conforming to our process model. And then in the last part, we want you to think about how can you actually improve the process. So the enhancement part will be not only investigating based on the data how the process is run, but also thinking of ways how can you improve this process. So we have not only looking at the performance and the conformance, but also the process enhancement at the end. Where Celonis is already implemented, as you can see it here on the slide, is in a lot of different industries. So wherever we have processes and data about these processes, so this is really the requirement for process mining, we need the data, of course. There you can also apply the technology and use the execution management system by Celonis. So varying from manufacturing, where we have one of the first customers, Siemens, over to high tech. There's the example of Uber. If some of you are using Uber, or if you're ordering Ubers from time to time, so we are also helping them in their customer service processes to improve them. Over to telecommunications, the energy sector. You can also see the consumer and retail. So here there's some logos like the Coca-Cola company or Heineken that are also using the technology in order to look into their processes and improve them. Over to pharma, chemicals, finance, as we also saw earlier, so different financial processes with ING, APG, ABN AMRO, or UniCredit here as an example. And one other example I really like to mention is the Lufthansa example in the airline and aerospace sector, because Lufthansa CityLine is using process mining for their grounding and maintenance operations. So whenever the airplane is waiting in the airport to take off, there are so many activities, so many process steps that need to be taken. Fueling, repairing some parts of the machine, boarding the passengers. So this is quite complex that you actually, all of this need to take into consideration. And the data help here to get the overview and see where things are not working well, are not running in the right way. And here in this initiative with Lufthansa, they actually found out a lot of different results. One I want to mention here is in the boarding process of passengers, they just implemented rotating shuttle buses because they identified in the process that usually there's a queue for passengers to take, so they have to wait for a long time to board the plane. And with these rotations of buses, they could have first half of the passengers in the first bus, they already board, go into the plane, and then the second half would be coming afterwards. And then this is something quite intuitive if I tell it to you, but they actually found it out based on the data, and they saw that there were long throughput times in the boarding process. So this is a result that came out of their process mining initiative and now helps them to leave on time, have punctuality of flights, and also higher satisfaction of the passengers because they arrive on time at their destination. So again, from this slide, you can really see that the process mining technology works wherever we have data around processes, and maybe this also helps you a little bit to think about where you could also see it yourself. So is there any touch point in your research or also in your teaching where you are encountering processes and where you have data around your processes? I also brought some other examples from L'Oreal. I'll just skip over it. I brought two from the customers, one based in France, the other one from Germany. So L'Oreal actually used process mining in order to win its war on blocked orders. So they wanted to reduce the blocked orders. You can see here the results are 25% reductions, and wanted to increase touchless orders. So actually increase manual work and automate more parts in their process. And in the end, they could increase their productivity by 20% by using the process mining technology, showing them where to automate specific parts in the process, and this way making the process more efficient. One example from L'Oreal, the other one from Germany, as we're speaking here to a French-German audience or academy. Zalando is based in Berlin, so these are a retail, fashion retail company. They started off with orders online, so actually now they also have more and more physical stores as far as I know, but they started really off with these ordering processes. And here in an order process, you would normally have a specific way to take throughout the process, so you need to check for compliance, so meaning that whenever you order something, this has to be confirmed, and normally the purchasing department would confirm your order. However, if this is not the case, if this is not done like that, we are speaking of merit buying. And merit buying actually means that without confirmation, a specific purchase is made, and this is not compliant to the guidelines of this process. So what Zalando did with process mining was reducing the rate of merit buying in their process, so actually being more compliant. By 75%, they were able to reduce merit buying. They could also, in the end, have more electronic invoicing over 2 years. So you see 50% is the rate for that KPI. And in the end, they had twice as much purchasing catalog utilization through a functionality from Celonis called Action Engine, where you have more and more automated parts also within the process. And they also use quite some machine learning. So that is, I think, also interesting for some of you developing own algorithms and working with machine learning techniques. So these two examples, before I want to go over to the practical part, showing you the Salonist execution management system live in this demo. And before we go into the software, I would like to pinpoint to you some of the functionalities within the Celonis execution management platform. So where everything starts is with this layer at the bottom. So these are all of the different systems that can be supported, and we are extracting data from there. So for example, an SAP system or a Salesforce system, or even desktop applications like Office, Excel, and so on. And from there, we take all of the data. So these are the underlying data that we need for our process mining initiative, for the process mining technology. And then in the platform, you see different parts that are very interesting and rooted in our product. So there's first of all the real-time data ingestion, then process and task mining. So task mining specifically looks at not only the whole process, but also desktop applications, as I mentioned, that users are facing every day and are using. So here task mining focuses on that. We have planning and simulation. So simulation is also getting more and more important. Visual and daily management, and finally also action flows. So this is the part where we're thinking more in terms of automation. How can parts of the process be automated? So this is very theoretical, and I would like to show it to you in the demo now. So going over again to the academic edition, you can open your own accounts now. And can you still hear me like this? Yeah. So you actually can follow me throughout the demo, look a little bit through the different functionalities together with me. So later on in the challenge, you will all be ready to also solve the challenge yourself. And I will change into my academic account as well. If it's showing. No. Okay. Here we go. So once you open your academic accounts, you will see the same that I'm showing here. So we have different functionalities. You see all of the functionalities on the top bar. So we will focus today on the business views. This is where you can see different processes. And there are quite some demo processes already in the academic edition for you ready to use. Then in the studio, this will be the part where you'll be working later on. So this is where you can edit your own analyses, create own analyses based on the data that you uploaded. And then in the event collection, this will be interesting for your own projects. If you want to analyze own processes, you can simply upload the data there. In the event collection, there's a file upload that actually shows you, I can show that as well here. So in the event collection, you will be able to see, if we're just opening one of the examples, here there's this file upload where we'll all later upload the files for the process that I prepared for the challenge. And you can also do that with your own files. So if you have Excel, CSV files, JSON, these are all supported. So you can upload them there and work on your own processes from this. And also quite interesting for those of you working with machine learning. So we also have the machine learning functionality. There is a full Jupyter notebook integrated. So for those of you who are working with Python, you can also make use of the machine learning functionality within Celonis. And this is especially interesting for predictive processes, or like predictive analysis if you want to think about how your process is going to evolve in the future. So based on historical data, you are then able to do that in the machine learning tab. For this demo, I would like to show you the process of the order to cash. So if you follow me into the business views, and then in the order to cash, this is here number 5. We can open the version in euros. What we can see here, first of all, is how many cases are we following through the process. So we are in this order to cash process talking about sales order items. So these are actually all of the items, all of the cases whenever something is ordered. We create the sales order item, And here in total, we have 988,000. And this corresponds to a net order value of 1.25 billion euros. So if we want to have a look at how this process actually is looking like, then we can have a look here into the Variant Explorer. So we see all of the different activities from process start till process end. First of all, it starts with receiving the order, and this has to be confirmed. After the confirmation, there is a delivery document that is generated in the system. And this is important because it captures all of the details about your order. So think of yourself, if you're ordering something online from Amazon, for example, then this is all running in the background that you as a customer maybe don't see with all of the different activities in the front end. Yeah.
Maybe I benefit from having a microphone. So who creates this? Is this a customer who creates it and then the customer feeds it with data? Is it your software that automatically creates it?
Yeah.
Where do the steps come from?
So who creates this specific visualization of the process is mostly teams within Celonis together with the customer. So they're actually thinking of, so for example, which KPIs do we want to show in the dashboard? So if they say we also want to include customer satisfaction here, then this KPI would also be created within the dashboard. But where it all starts is really what I was explaining before. It starts with the data. So the customer, he or she, the customer actually gives the data that are collected in their system. So in this example, it's from an SAP system. And then once these data are prepared, so in the event logs as we saw them beforehand, then they can be connected to Celonis or uploaded into Celonis. And then from there, you start creating the dashboards based on the data model. So this is created by Celonis teams that are working closely with the customer, but the customer usually says, these are the KPIs that we are tracking, these are the KPIs we want to focus on for our business. So this is very important to have these prerequisites and working side by side with the customer in the beginning.
Okay, that was very helpful. And so now there's in every item there's the same number of data sets. And how does so when I'm coming now bottom up in the sense of I have a raw data set and whatever a CSV table with certain columns, and how do I have to imagine this now? So for generate delivery document, this is like a filter. There it means that the value here is A and here it's Z or something like that, or how is the data matching now with each of these process step entries?
So we will do that in a case challenge actually.
Okay,
so you have the data table and you have to identify this is our activity table, and based on this we are creating these activities here. So you would say this column is my case ID column where we're tracking all of the numbers, and the other column would be all of the activities. So you're actually having the names that are appearing here now. And then also with the timestamp, we can then also have a look at the throughput times. So now I'm showing here the case frequency, but if you change this little icon here on top, you can also go into throughput time on average. And what you're seeing now on this process flow, if we take it in days, is actually how many days are between these activities. And this is of course also really relevant to see the overall throughput time for that specific variant that we are showing here now. So to answer the question, we will actually prepare this later on also in the challenge. So you then, based on the data, can directly see the process flow here in the Celonis.
And the reason why I ask is also when I went with you through the training, for me this was very abstract. Because I'm not at all into these process diagrams and visualizing the data like that. And for me, therefore, it was a little bit magic, this transition between the data and this here. And this is why I also asked the question. So if you can be more explicit later on that when you explain it, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
For the participants, you can just ask these kinds of questions, because in the end, Josephine is doing it exactly for you. And therefore, whenever you think, okay, I'm stuck here, just ask her, because she has much more wisdom than she's normally telling, because it's a typical expert problem that you think everything is clear, and therefore really use the opportunity to ask. We're a small group, and therefore it can be super interactive, and I think she's happy about it.
Definitely, thank you. Did you have a question?
So I wanted to ask this. I mean, this looks quite fascinating. I mean, you are taking an X-ray of a company, of its processes. I was shocked, like you show some of your customers, they are giant companies worldwide, like all Fortune 500.
Yeah.
How they are willing to hand you over all these, some of them it might be even critical data. Don't they sometimes even say that, yeah, we don't hand over you the data, you give us the tool, we will do it on our own, we will end up the results. It's interesting, like how did you convince these?
Yeah, very good question. Like I see two questions in this. Like first of all, why are customers using the tool? In this, yeah, exactly. Because so what you can see here, it's showing this X-ray of your process, which normally you would know, like based on like different departments that are working on the process, they have an idea how the process looks like. But here we really want to have a look at it objectively based on the data. So this is the first eye-opening experience for the Fortune 500 companies that are having the license of Celonis and are using Celonis for their own processes. What you asked now, like why would they give out the data? So otherwise it wouldn't work. If they only have the tool, I mean, we can see it also later on. I gave you the tool now, but if you are starting to work on Celonis, you need some like expertise, like to get familiar with it. Maybe it's easier for you as PhD students, but people working on the processes directly, they don't have an IT background, so it's very hard for them to get started just by their own. So normally they're actually already in the pre-sale cycle with my colleagues from Celonis. They are already giving out a sample data set. So this is what we call a proof of value. And with this only like the first data set, so this tryout data set, let's say, they already build out dashboards and show the business value to the customer. And once they are convinced, after this pre-sale cycle, then they sign the license and they actually start with their whole process mining initiative. So first of all, in this proof of value, data is needed, so the customer has to give it in order for them to see the value in the end. And the other question that I also heard about privacy, so what can we do about that? Of course, these data will be pseudonymized, so there won't be saying like Mark Oliver is doing this activity or Aaron is doing this and this activity on a regular basis, but you would actually get pseudonymized, anonymized numbers. So in this sense, especially in Europe, in the US, it's a bit of a different story. Data privacy is a huge issue, and these are randomized in the sense that you cannot trace it back to specific employees of the company.
So my remark is that, I mean, there must be quite a trust between Celonis and the companies, because like some of them don't even share anything else outside their revenues or number of employers. It's I found it interesting, to hand it over.
Yeah, I mean, it's trust on the one hand, and also in the end for them to really generate this business value, because they're paying quite a bit to get the license, and of course they want to have a return of investment. So when they see that with this process, the order to cash, I didn't even show you some inefficiencies here. So for example, if you drag more and more variants here, you can also see that there's this extension of a confirmed delivery date. And that actually means that the process will take longer. So you see, instead of 3 days, we have now 5 + 5, 10 extra days. So the process slows down. And if you actually see this with Celonis in your data, then you can act upon it. So the idea is for the company to really get out the return of investment. They pay for the license, but they also want to get the results and see how they can improve their process. And for this extension of the confirmed delivery date, which would mean that you as a customer, you receive your order at a later point in time, there are also some intelligent actions that Celonis suggests. So with the actually the action engine part that we see up here, or also the action flows, you can then create scenarios that are saying, like, for our top customers, if they have a late order, we will actually give them a warning and tell them right away that your order will be not on time. So they are kind of satisfied, they wait, they know that they have to wait for a bit longer, and maybe they also get a reduction on their next purchase because the process took longer for them. And so these intelligent actions, so sending out notifications whenever you see that the process is deviating from the ideal process, this is something that is very valuable to directly act upon these inefficiencies in the process. And I showed you one example here of the extension of the confirmed delivery date. You can also have an exploration of more and more variants. So here Another variant of our process would show, if we use this animation, that after shipping the goods, these are actually returned, the order is cancelled, and then the process ends. So you're thinking of yourself, whenever you order something and you send it back, what does it mean to the company where you're buying from? Any ideas? You're ordering something online, you didn't like the product, you send it back and you cancel your order. So what does it mean for the company? Exactly, they don't make any profit with you as a customer because you're sending back the product, you're not paying for it. We don't have the part of clearing the invoice at the end. So they're actually losing money. And this is a very big inefficiency that we can see here with these returning of goods and canceling the order. So what you can do in this dashboard is actually focus on all of the cases where we have cancellation of orders. So here in 8% of the cases, you can pick with and keep the selection. And then here on top, we have a filter of all of our cases that are going through cancellation of your order. And then you would see directly what does it actually mean in terms of numbers of cases. So here, 8% was already calculated for us. And the net order value that the company could potentially lose, as you said correctly, is also stated here. So 74 million euros. So here, this is also what you asked about, like why would companies do that? They can save money if they see, okay, they have this problem here with cancellation of orders and think of ways how to improve it in order to actually keep this cash flow for themselves. So in the end, it's really maximizing their business and also improving the customer satisfaction in this example. Then we can also have some other insights. For example, if you go to the next sheet, here at the bottom, you have different sheets that are already there for you. And in the overview sheet, we also see here the development over time. So you can see that there are the specific months. Some have a higher amount of sales order items. Some others have a lower net value. For example, in this month here, we have less orders and less value that the company would actually receive. And interesting is also to see where the problems are based on the customer. So we now have this filter on cancellation of orders. And if I want to see which customer actually has most of the orders with a cancellation, then you can filter here in descending order. I hope you can see it, or is it very small for you who is sitting at the top? You can click into this field of orders and then see that the Queen Industries has more than 3,900 orders that are actually cancelled. So in this case, the company wouldn't make any profit with them. So you could also filter on the Queen Industry, set a filter here, and then see how is the process running for them. So how are the different activities going forward for this Queen Industry? What is the development over time? So you see where are actually most of the orders for this customer and where are less of them. So in this sense, you can really discover the process based on these interactive dashboards. So this might be very boring for you, and that's why in the case challenge, we will actually focus on how can you create your own dashboards for a delivery process. So this will be more the hands-on part, where you connect the data to Celonis and then also create a dashboard from scratch. So we will do that upstairs in the group rooms, where we then also upload own data and then actually create these dashboards here. One example I would also like to show before we finish off is the so-called conformance check, because this will also be part of the challenge later. So if you open this conformance sheet, this is where you can see how many cases are actually in line with our ideal process flow. And it says here that automatically Celonis calculates this for us in the background based on conformance algorithms. So 59% of cases are conforming to the model. If you ask me now, but which model are you talking about? Then we can see it here in view process model. And this is actually the model very similar to this first variant that we had a look at in the beginning. So it starts off with the order is received, and it takes here the different routes until the goods can be shipped. Later on, we have here sending the invoice, and once the customer paid, clearing the invoice, and then our process ends. So it really shows you the process flow from start till end, and this is the ideal process. So like this, it can happen, but whenever there's an activity that is not in your ideal model, then Celonis would tell you, like, there's a problem, have a closer look. And this is what we can see in the list of violations. So here are actually 40 different violations. And the first one is, in 17% of cases, we have this extension of the confirmed delivery date. So these are the cases where our order is already confirmed, but then the date is actually pushed back, so the process takes longer. And this is very inefficient and also not desired in our process. So here we have actually this specific activity flagged as an undesired activity because it takes extra time, aggregated 29 days, and it also is an extra step in our process. And other violations would be what we also talked about, cancellation of the order, returning the goods. These are all listed here. So if companies want to have a quick glimpse into what is not working well in our process, what is not conforming to our model, they could quickly check in the conformance checker where are actually the violations to the ideal model. And then here you see in how many % of cases these are occurring and what does it also mean to the process. So this is kind of this bottom-up, top-down approach. There you can start, see the violations, and then think of ways how to improve the process based on here. Do you have any questions about the demo?
There's a question, general question. So it's anonymous question to Slido. It says, what is the main difference between Celonis, UiPath, Software Aktiengesellschaft? Probably these are competitors. Why or Software AG?
Software AG, I'm not familiar with, but UiPath is actually focusing on robotic process automation, the RPA integration there. And Celonis has the larger look at the discovery of processes and also finding out these inefficiencies as we were doing here in the demo, and then also thinking of ways how can we automate some parts of the process. So this part of RPA comes in the next step of Celonis, where we have the integration with Integromat, which is a tool that I can also share the link with you later on. So there you can actually automate parts of your process in specific scenarios. And UiPath then is focused on this RPA part, but the idea is what we always convey within Celonis execution management system is first you have to understand your processes, see what is going wrong in the process, what is working well in the process before you can automate parts of the process. Because you start automating right away, maybe you're automating this extension of confirmed delivery dates, which is not a desired activity in our process. So you are actually in the end automating parts of the process that you do not want to have. So these are not conforming your model. So before you start with the RPA integrations, first of all, do a general check of process mining conformance in order to see how the processes are run. So I hope this answers the question. That Celonis is actually also integrating RPA more and more within Integromat that was acquired last year. But process mining is still an essential part before starting with the automations. All right, then I would like to go back to the presentation. And as I promised beforehand, I would like to show to you where you can also get more knowledge about after the session today. So you in your PhD, but also maybe for the students that you are teaching, bachelor or master students, you can also always refer them to our certification opportunities, because these are actually for all academics on a free basis. And especially for you, I would recommend to start off with the Process Mining Fundamentals course. So you can take this link here. It's a bit long, so later on, once you get the slides, you can also take it from there. And actually get access to all of the different courses that we have. So this Salonist Academy, this is the training platform where you have a lot of different courses, such as the Process Mining Fundamentals or the Process Mining Experts, but also other courses based on machine learning within Celonis or based on action flows, so more of the automation part within Celonis. And these are small snippets that you can also take, and most of them come with a certificate at the end. So here for the Process Mining Fundamentals course, you get this fundamentals certificate, There are theoretical modules and also practical case at the end, around 20 hours. And once you've completed all of these parts, you will get your process mining certificate for free. You don't have to pay for downloading of the certificate. You get a badge throughout the training platform, because I also was just asked from PhD students yesterday. And for the process mining experts, it's a bit more of an advanced course. So this is especially if you want to work in groups, and there are intakes every couple of months, and then you're working more intensively for 4 weeks in groups, also on a challenge, and in the end you get the expert certificate. So these are formats that we are offering to courses. So if you're also teaching, keep those in mind. Now for you, actually coming also more from the theoretical side and from the academic side, I would really recommend the newest course that we have with Professor van der Aalst. It was launched mid-November, so it's very new still. And this course is with him as an instructor. So there was this Coursera course with Will van der Aalst before, but it's really outdated. So here you have all of the newest parts coming from the theory with an introduction, explaining the process discovery, going more in depth about the conformance checking, and also explaining the whole theory behind it with the conformance algorithms and so on. Getting the data, so here speaking about event logs that I also showed to you today, and actually also focusing more on object-centric process mining. This is also something that, especially in his research, is getting more and more important, and also in the whole community. Then the last part, or the two last parts, are then comparative and predictive process mining. So here machine learning for the predictions is coming into place. And finally, which is also fitting nicely to the question that we had earlier today, why is process mining also connected to RPA? So here, this is an outlook part in the end. So as I mentioned, once we know our processes, how can we then also automate them in a good way? And this course is very hands-on, so you have lecture parts, also exercises, and yeah, really coming from this academic angle, combined with the industry side, so also having the cases on the exercises within Celonis directly. It takes about 8 hours, so it's a bit shorter than the other formats. And again, if you go on that link here, celonis.com, Will's process mining class, you can register directly to the course, and then from there also get your certificate once you completed all of it. And I would really recommend it to you because it's a high class production as well, and really the newest course that is there for academics and also for industry players. So it's actually for both. Any questions about this course? Anything in the chat?
Yes, so not related to the course, but since you asked, so there is a question, I think this is a follow-up question to the previous one, in the general sense that what if the customer doesn't have big data? Like mid-sized companies, small-sized companies, can they also benefit from you in cases the client doesn't have a huge data?
Yeah, so if they don't have any data at all, it's hard. If they have a small amount of data, then we also have a Celonis free plan. So this is actually a version, an edition of the software, which is for small and middle-sized enterprises, so they can upload their data, as we were also doing in the academic edition today, and then also drive first analyses. So they don't have to buy the license as companies with big data and with a huge amount of data sets would do it. So we are offering this free plan for the SMEs and also for startups. But if there are no data at all, like how would you do the process mining technology? You always need to have the data in order to then really analyze your process. For very family-run businesses like the pizzeria that we are also focusing on later on, there you can think of actually manually collecting the data. So whenever an order is made, write down all of the activities and the times for it, and then you can still create dashboards. But of course, with the Fortune 500 companies, this is not the case. There we always reconstruct the process based on the data from huge systems. So yeah, the answer here is have data. We want to really push digital transformation. And if you only have a small amount of data, and for SMEs who are not there to buy the license, then use the free plan of Celonis.
Do you also ask for data? Like, you don't bring this, but it would be great if you can bring this kind of measurements and such. Like, do you also ask for specific data?
To the companies?
You realize that it would be...
Yeah, it depends really on the process that they want to analyze. So if they want to analyze their order to cash process, then you would need to collect the data for the specific process. If they look into, for example, an IT service help desk, as we saw it in the very first project that Celonis was run, then they would need to extract the data from the IT system. So you always need the data, of course, for the process you want to analyze. All right, so finishing off, if there's any more, or actually skip one slide, if some of you did one of the courses, so the Process Mining Fundamentals, or also the course with Professor van der Aalst, you can actually apply to become a Celonis ambassador. So this is something also interesting for you because you're coming from different universities, and if you also want to talk more about process mining, how you can integrate this in your research on your own campus in your university, then keep this in mind. We have the ambassador program for those who have a bit more knowledge about process mining already acquired throughout the courses. And then here are some benefits if you are ambassador that you can also get from Celonis. So this is especially for academics who want to foster more a process mining or machine learning community related to process mining in their campus. So I also put that on the slide, and you can take more information on this link as well. And I think there was one more question that I skipped beforehand in the last row. Did you have one more question? Okay, that's great. All right. So if there's anything before we go over to the challenge part, feel free to let me know. You also get my contact details here. And as I mentioned earlier, because in the Academic Alliance, we are not only presenting and delivering the case studies with student groups, like we are in the setting today, but we also support for teaching. Definitely reach out. So if this is something interesting for your own universities, I'm happy to get in touch and also direct you to the case studies that we offer, where you can use data in order to actually analyze them within Celonis in your courses. So this is something I also put here. If you are teaching, if you need some teaching support, definitely reach out to me. Thank you so much. And if there are any more questions later on, I mean, I will still be around. We will do the challenge right now. Then don't hesitate. So this is the nice thing to be here in person. You don't have to write anything in the chat. You can ask me right away. Thank you so much for your attention.